Welcome back to our class. This is a Psych5 Personal and Social Awareness, and this video is for Chapter 3 about autonomy and adulthood, and in week 2. So in this lecture, we are going to talk about the characteristic of adulthood. There are 3 small life stages in adulthood. There is young adulthood, there's middle adulthood, and there's a late adulthood. And we were going to talk about the characteristics of those smaller life stages. And also, we are going to introduce some concepts that is related to human development, that is related to our personal growth. For example, we are going to talk about autonomy and what autonomy is like and why we need autonomy. And also we are going to talk about life scripts. So that's a really interesting concept that we can know about. And we're going to talk about injunctions and the strategies to overcome injunctions, such as mindfulness. So we will know in this lecture what they are and why they are useful, and why we talk about those stuff. And let's start the lecture for chapter 3. So the first question we need to think about for this week is adulthood. So what is a real adult like? Or what is a mature adult like? So when we talk about maturity, when we talk about growing up, so how do you tell somebody has grown up or not? I mean, psychologically or emotionally. Of course, we can tell whether a person has grown up physically or not, because we can tell from the appearance. But how do we tell whether a person has grown up, has become an adult? So we can tell this from one standard, that is maturity. How, to a degree, this person has been a mature adult. But the further question is, what is a mature adult like? So think about this question. You can think about any kind of features or characteristics that mature adults have, and then you can make notes, write down those characteristics and your thoughts, and you can pause the video right now and think about the question and take notes. Okay, so in my opinion, when I see the phrase a mature adult, I will think somebody who would be financially independent. It means that this person can make a living and raise him or herself without any help from other people like parents or other friends or somebody else. So this person can support his or her own life independently without help. And also, this person can be responsible for what he or she has done. That means that this person can be responsible for his own or her own life, or his or her own things that they have done. And also, I would think that this mature adult is emotionally stable. So in other words, this person would not lose the temper easily. This person can handle the some accidents or some unexpected events well. Especially, this person can manage his or her own emotions very well when meeting this unexpected events or accidents. So these are the things that I think a mature adult would be like. Through the textbook, the authors gave a really interesting answer to this question: what is a mature adult like? They believe that having autonomy or being autonomous is the most critical characteristic of maturity of individuals. In other words, a most outstanding characteristic of a mature adult is that this person has autonomy. So in the next lecture, let's see what autonomy is. What does autonomy mean for people? Yeah, autonomy is probably the most essential characteristic of a mature adult. So what is a person like with autonomy, with full autonomy? The way to treat themselves is that the people who have the autonomy accept the responsibility for the consequences of their own choices. So in everyday life, we make choices. We make different decisions on what we need to do, what we want to do. So we make tons of choices every day. And these choices follow, these choices bring some consequences. So the consequences follow some choices that we make. But the question is, can we bear the consequences of our own choices? That's the question that we need to think of. So the people who have autonomy, they can take the responsibility for these consequences. It means that they can feel free to make choices, and they can feel free to accept the responsibility for the consequences that follow those choices that they have made. So that's how they treat themselves for those who have autonomy. The people with autonomy are more likely to connect with other people, more likely to collaborate with other people, more likely to trust other people, respect other people, show the empathy to other people. So you can see that they build a healthy connection with other people for those who have autonomy. So I think that's what autonomy really means. Autonomy means that people can live, can do things based on their own will. So they have their own will or willingness. They're willing to do this kind of things, and they feel free to do it. They feel that they can do it instead of having the hesitations or other factors that constrain them to do something they want to do. So if you say that, oh, I want to make choices, but I do not want to accept the consequences of those choices, I don't believe that that's a sign of having autonomy. Having autonomy means that they can make their own choices and they are responsible for the consequences that follow those choices. And also they can make meaningful and healthy connections with other people. That's what a mature adult means, and that's what having autonomy means. And also the textbook brings a particular view about human development. That's the self in context view. So if you put the self concept in the context, the final goal, the ultimate goal of human development is to having a mature self, is to having a self who has autonomy. Yeah, so that's what autonomy means. So next part, we can think about how to have autonomy, or we can think about in what situations we do not have autonomy. In what situation we cannot be responsible for our own choices, consequences. So there's one thing we need to know about, that is life script. So life script is just like the scripts of our life, but those scripts of life influence our values and beliefs. So for any movies or TV episodes, there is a script, right? So, or some even some other kind of stories, there's a script for that story, for that fiction, for that movie or TV episode. But for our life, for everybody's life, there seems to be a script that has been written down, and we live a life according to that script. We just act based on that script. And we cannot see that script, and we cannot hear that script, we cannot smell that script, but it seems like there is a script hidden in our mind that we must act based on that script. So let's know about what the life script is. So when we grow up, so at first time we're just newborns without any knowledge or thoughts or emotions. But after we are born, when we grow up, we can learn some values, beliefs, and even behavioral patterns or emotional patterns. So emotional patterns can be something like how we react to some kind of events. Something like when we feel, how do we react? We cry, we are sad. So that's something that we learn. So those patterns, emotional patterns, are something that we learn when we grow up. So we do not necessarily react to failures with sadness or crying, but we learn to have those emotions when we meet failure. So those are emotional patterns. And also there are some behavioral patterns. Something like we satisfy ourselves as quickly as possible. We satisfy ourselves with as much as possible, no matter what. That's one of the behavioral patterns. And the opposite behavioral pattern may be something like I do not satisfy myself. I do not really satisfy myself as quickly as possible. I delay this kind of a satisfaction. So that's another behavioral pattern. So for all those patterns or behaviors, we learn from other people or from the experiences when we grow up. And also we gradually form some kind of beliefs. We have knowledge about a lot of things. We have knowledge about ourselves. We believe ourselves are something, like something. And also we have beliefs about other people. We have beliefs about things in the world. We have beliefs about technology, society, and so forth. And also we have values. So one of the examples for values is that we should be honest. We should not tell lies to other people. So that's one of the values. So when we grow, we have all those values and beliefs and behavior patterns, emotional patterns. So sometimes we take those beliefs, values, and patterns from parents, because the parents are those who influence us the most. We live with our parents for the longest time. When we are born, we live with our parents, and their everyday life, what they do, what they say in their everyday life, heavily influence how we say, how we do things in our own life. And this process is called internalization. It means that we can internalize something that is outside into ourself. So at the beginning, ourself is just empty. There's no concept about self, no beliefs, no values, no behavior patterns or emotional patterns. But we can make those things outside. We can absorb the things from outside into ourself. So we can internalize those external things. So that's a really quick way to learn. So I think that humans can have that ability. Humans have that tendency to internalize external values, beliefs, or behavior patterns, or emotional patterns, and other things. But not all the animals have those abilities. So some mammals. So mammals are animals with really probably the highest cognitive abilities, most advanced animals. Mammals have the ability to internalize those values and beliefs and behavior patterns, but humans are the most advanced one of them. So we can easily internalize the values and beliefs and patterns from our parents or from other people that we can meet. So internalization is a mechanism or process that we can easily adapt to the real world or to the current world. And also there's another way that we can grow, that is experience. So we talked about experience in week 2 for the first chapter. So we say that we said that every individual is an organism. So the really most characteristic of the organism is that this organism has experiences every moment, everywhere. So experiencing something is also the way that we can learn, we can grow. But internalization is another process that we can grow, we can learn. Internalization we can learn from our parents, from other people. We can quickly just move those values and beliefs and patterns from other people to ourselves, to our own mind. So that's the process called internalization. But there can be a side effect of internalization. So it seems like some values, some beliefs are like injected or introjected into children's self-concepts. How do we know that? Because some values are not consistent or congruent with children's self-concepts. So in children's minds or in our minds, some kind of values are conflicting with our own self-concepts. So they are not hanging out together very well. They do not get along each other very well. So they are often have conflicts. And those values sometimes cause problems. And those values, behavioral patterns or beliefs, emotion patterns form the life script. So in the early year of our life, we internalized a large amount of values, beliefs, and behavior patterns, emotion patterns from our parents or other caregivers. And those things, those contents become the life script, become the script of our life. And later we grow up, when we have grown up, it seems like we must act, we must behave, we must say based on the life script that we have, that is formed in the early year of our life. So those values, behavior patterns, or beliefs are life scripts. Yeah, life scripts can come from the parents. The parents educate us to behave in a certain way, to act in a certain way, to talk in a certain way, and also we learn from the culture. So we are living in a particular culture. For example, we see each other. When we see each other, we say, "How are you?" or "How are you doing?" or "How's it going?" Right? So we ask for the other's situation. So we ask question and then they respond. That's the culture. Probably in some other cultures, they don't ask those questions. They just meet and talk about things that they want to talk about. But in our particular culture, we say "How are you?" or something like that when we meet each other. And the life scripts and also from ourselves, from our the decisions that we made in the early years. And also life scripts are really essential for us. They become the part of our identity. They become part of who we are. For example, being honest is a value. It can be our life script. So it guides us to how to talk to other people. So when we have a value that we are honest, we must be honest, so that we do not tell lies to other people. In most cases, being honest will become a identity of ourselves. So if I ask you how to describe yourself, you may say, "Oh, I'm an honest person." So that life script becomes your identity, one part of your identity. And also, those life scripts are incorporated into our self-concepts. So that life scripts help us to know who we are. So life concepts are something that about ourselves. In self-concepts, there are all kinds of knowledge and values and beliefs about ourselves. So self-concepts are really important for everyone. So those life scripts that we learn, that we get from our early years, are are part of our concept. So they are deeply incorporated into our self-concept. And the life script tell us who we are and how we behave. There are some examples of life scripts from the textbook. Something like older people are to be honored and respected. So yeah, so that's one of the values or beliefs that one can hold. Another example can be always obey your parents and grandparents. That's another life script. And there's another one. The father is the head of the family. That's also a value or belief that we learn from our early childhood years. So the father is the head of family. That one may be from parents. That one is maybe from the society or from the culture. So we can see that when we grow up, we are heavily influenced by our parents or by the culture that we are living in, by the society we are living in. So those influences, those values or beliefs that we get from other people become who we are, become part of the self-concept, become part of our fundamental belief systems. So these are life scripts. The question that I have for you right now is, what kind of life scripts do you have in your mind? So what are some beliefs and values that you are told from parents or other family members? So those life scripts must come from somewhere, from your family members or from parents. And you can talk about the life script that you have to yourself, or to another person that you can find right now. So you can think about, oh, what kind of life scripts that you have. Oh, those life scripts may come from your parents, or may come from other people in your family. You can talk about this life scripts, and you can talk about this to another person. You can pause the video right now and answer this question. So the next question is, why do we have life scripts? So simply speaking, we internalize all those beliefs and values, right? So when we grow up, we have a natural tendency to internalize everything that we can see or we can hear from. But what is the exact process of internalizing those life scripts? So I'll have a possible explanation for that. So for why we having those, we are having those life scripts. So when we are children, we hope to receive love from caregivers or parents, and we hope to receive the acceptance of parents at any moment. So at every moment, we want to get love and acceptance from our parents or anybody who can take care of us. So that's also why we form the attachment with our caregivers or parents. So last week we talked about attachment theory. We said that attachment is really critical for the baby's survival, because really young children cannot take care of themselves independently, so they cannot live independently. They must rely on their caregivers. At the same time, during the process of forming the attachment with the caregiver, the children want to receive the love. They want to be taken care of by their caregivers. They want to get the love and acceptance. But sometimes, or even most of the time, parents cannot finish that task very well. It means that parents oftentimes give love and acceptance conditional on how children behave and what children are like. Sometimes we, as adults, we cannot just give love without any conditions. That's ability we kind of lose when we become adults. So if oftentimes adults love something with conditions, it means that if this person or this animal or this thing behave like this, I love him or her or it. If this thing or a person or animal does not behave like this, does not behave the way that I like, I will not love this person or animal or thing. So that's what it means by loving with conditions, or loving conditionally on how they behave. And another example is, if this child looks ugly, so based on my own standard of judging, so I believe, oh, this boy is really ugly, I will not love this boy, because when I see him, he's so ugly. I do not want to see him. I do not want to communicate with him. I do not want to talk to him. I do not want to interact with him. So I leave him alone. But there's another boy who looks really beautiful, really pretty. So I love that boy. I talk to him. I interact with him and I accept him. So in this situation, my love is conditional. My love has conditions. My love is conditional on how the boy is pretty or ugly. So that's conditional love. So that's unconditional love. And yeah, so the example on the slide is that some parents love children better if they do not mistakes or if they obey the parents. If the children do something really bad based on the standard of parents, do something really bad, the parents do not love the children anymore. They punish the children. They say something bad to the children. Uh, they say to the children that they are not worthy of getting the love from the parents. If they do not mistakes, if they obey the parents, if the children do everything right, and the parents may love the kids more, may love the children more. So in this situation, the love is conditional on how children behave and what children are like. So for children, they live under such a social environment in which parents will give the love to the children conditional on how they behave or what they are like. To receive the love, children start to incorporate or internalize those messages or beliefs or values into their own identity or into their own self-concept. So those messages and beliefs from parents become the guidelines for how they behave, what they say, how they say things. So that's the process of internalizing the external values or beliefs into their own self-concept or identity. So one example is that the parents may not accept the children to make mistakes, and gradually the children learn in this family that, oh, I cannot make mistakes. So every time at any moment, the children will think, does this make mistake? If I do this, do I make mistakes? If doing this makes mistakes, I would not do that. So gradually, the children form a self-concept as something that I'm a person who does not make mistakes. So that's how children internalize those beliefs or values. However, sometimes the values and beliefs that they internalize or incorporate from the parents are conflicting with the children's own experiences. So please notice that the children get knowledge or beliefs from two sources. One source is from internalization, incorporating other people's beliefs and values into their own, to become their own. And the second source is their direct experience. So they also have their own experiences, direct experiences, because they are also interacting with the environment all the time. Sometimes the things from the two sources are conflicting each other. They cannot get along well in their own mind. For example, one example is one of the really direct experiences is that no matter how hard they try, they still make mistakes. So that's the experience that we all have. So no matter how hard we try, we still make mistakes. We cannot be perfect. Perfection is not existing. It's not possible. So no matter how hard we try, we cannot be perfect. We cannot be some person who does not make mistakes. We always make mistakes, no matter how hard we try. So that's the direct experience we will get from life. But sometimes we have the belief that I'm a person who does not make mistakes. So if you analyze the two belief or two statements, you can see they are conflicting with each other, right? So on the other side is one side is do not make mistakes. On the other side is still making mistakes, no matter what. So this is a typical example that the children's direct experience conflicting with the values and beliefs that they internalize from their parents or other caregivers. And the children start to have some kind of problems, psychological problems, emotional problems, or behavioral problems. So because there are two kinds of beliefs or values that are fighting each other all the time in their own mind. They internalize all the stuff from different sources into their own mind, become who they are, but they cannot get along each other in their own mind. So the problems start to emerge. For example, the children who have this kind of conflicting values may stop trying, stop taking initiatives, stop doing something that is risky, and also think that they themselves are dumb and worthless because they believe that they cannot make mistakes, but no matter what, they still make mistakes. So the following conclusion may be that, oh, I'm too dumb or worthless. I just cannot achieve what I want. Actually, the goal is that value is from their parents or from somebody else, not from their own direct experience. But they believe so because those life scripts become their own identity and self-concept. And also there's another concept that appears in our lecture, that is injunction. So what is injunction? So the injunction means that the messages or beliefs that we get from our parents or from other people. So these are injunctions. So injunctions are inside our mind and they are from external sources. So pretty much like a life script, but life script can include a lot of things, and the life script can include injunctions, different injunctions. Every one of us has a life script, and there are tons of injunctions in this life script. Here are some example injunctions, such as don't make mistakes. So that's maybe the message that we get from our parents. So do not make mistakes, otherwise you'll be screwed or you'll get punished or what else. And the second one, don't be. So probably that's the more serious one. So it means that do not become what you are. Do not you're not worthy to live in this world. So that kind of message. And the next one is don't be important. And that's also a message that we can get from our parents or caregivers or other people. It seems like we are not important. We are not important to live in this world. And the next one, don't be a child. Sometimes we want to, we are childish, and our parents or other people will tell us, "Oh, don't be a child. So to be more mature, or to be more reliable. What else? Other examples can be don't grow up, don't be stronger or have more abilities. Don't be you, or it means that do not become what you are. Do not become your true self. Do not like express your own your true self. So if you have some opinions, do not talk to other people. So these are all the example injunctions that we often get from our parents or other people. So you can see that those injunctions or left scripts may be problematic. Those injunctions are deeply rooted in our mind, in our self-concepts and identity. Those injunctions become who we are, and we cannot easily get rid of them. And sometimes those injunctions cause the problems because those injunctions are conflicting with our experiences or conflicting with our true self. In our true self, we might make mistakes. We want to be important. Sometimes we want to be a child. We do not want to grow up. Sometimes we want to grow up. Sometimes we just want to be our true self, express our true feelings, talk about our true opinions to other people. That's what we want. That's what we can have. That's we get from our direct experience. So in our direct experience, we want to be our true self. But sometimes we also get injunctions. We have injunctions, and those injunctions stop us doing that, stop us becoming our true self, and they in conflict with the direct experience. So that's why we do not have a high degree of autonomy. So let's go back to the beginning of today's lecture. What is a mature adult like? A person with autonomy. So being autonomous means that, in other words, it means that they can be what they want to be like. They can express their true selves. They can become what they want to become. But with these injunctions, we do not have enough autonomy. We cannot be the true self sometimes with these injunctions. So those injunctions and left scripts sometimes stop us having autonomy. So how to deal with that? How to solve this problem? How to resolve the negative consequences from those problematic injunctions? There are some ways. There are I can introduce two ways to deal with injunctions in today's lecture. So the first way to deal with that is a particular cognitive therapy. So I believe that from Psych 1, we all have a basic knowledge or brief knowledge about clinical psychology or different kinds of therapies. There are behavioral therapies and there are cognitive therapies. And this therapy is called a rational emotive behavior therapy, or REBT. It's a combination of behavioral therapy and cognitive therapy. REBT is invented by the psychiatrist and psychologist Albert Ellis in 20th century. So the picture on the right is a photo of Albert Ellis. So he's a really great psychologist because he invented this rational emotive behavior therapy that might create a huge changes, huge improvements in people's lives. So here's some premises of this therapy or assumption. So this therapy has assumption. The assumption is that the reason for why people have emotional or behavioral problems is that they have the inaccurate or irrational beliefs in childhood. So from the childhood, in childhood, when children are growing up, they may internalize or form some kind of beliefs or messages or values that are not accurate, that are not rational. Rational means that it is consistent with logic. Irrational means that those beliefs are not consistent with the logic, not consistent with the common sense. So some beliefs are not accurate. They are not consistent with the reality. So the beliefs are based on imagination or some wrong ideas. So these beliefs, they're irrational, they're not accurate, they're disturbing our minds, disturbing some people's minds in adulthood. So that's why those adults have emotional and behavioral problems. Here's a specific pattern for how it happens. So Albert Ellis divided the whole process into 3 basic steps. It's called ABC. So step A, some kind of event occurs in the childhood. And there's an example, Sally. Sally's parents abandoned her as a child. So when Sally was a child, her parents abandoned her, did not raise her anymore. And that's the event. That's what happened to Sally in the early years. And the next step, step B, Sally has some kind of explanation of that event. A belief is formed about the event. So Sally is like thinking, oh, why I was abandoned. Sally believes that that is her responsibility to be abandoned or being abandoned. Sally believes that why parents abandon her because she herself is not good enough or she did something wrong, so her parents abandoned her. So that's her belief. That is an explanation of that event. And the second step, the third step, step C, the belief brings some kind of emotional consequences that cause problems. Sally feels depressed and worthless. Sally believes that she shouldn't exist in the world. That she shouldn't be born because she's somebody who needs to be abandoned. She's worth is gone because her parents abandoned her because of her she is worthless. So that she feels really sad and depressed. So that's the emotional consequences that follow the belief about the event. So that's how problems, emotional or behavioral problems occur from the beginning to the end. And they can be divided, the whole process can be divided into 3 steps, ABC. A is the event, B is the explanation or idea or belief, C is a consequence. So the major contribution of REBT is that the link between A and B, the link between the event and the belief may be not rational. Doesn't make sense. Actually, in reality, it doesn't make sense. It's not accurate. That does not make sense. It's not consistent with the logic. So the link between A and B shouldn't exist. So the REBT helps people realize that, have an insight of what happened between A and B, have an insight of how B is formed based on A. So helps people dispute the faulty beliefs. So this belief is not accurate, it's not rational. We should abandon those kind of beliefs. So REBT helps the people to cut off the connection between the event and the belief. So that's what rational emotive behavior therapy does, REBT. So you can see that Sally's parents abandoned her as a child. What is the reason behind it? There can be many possible reasons. There can be many possibilities. But it's not Sally's responsibility. So the rational belief is that it's not Sally's responsibility. The rational belief is that Sally's parents are not good enough. Sally's parents are not responsible. Sally shouldn't be responsible for that event, but Sally's parents should. So that's the rational belief. So if Sally comes to the therapist and talk about her own story, the therapist should help Sally to realize that Sally's belief is not correct. There's the connection between the event and the belief should be cut off. So that's about rational emotive behavior therapy. So in step B, some kind of beliefs are formed. So those are injunctions actually. But Albert Ellis did not mention the concept injunctions. The injunctions are concepts that are brought up by other people, but actually the wrong, irrational, and inaccurate beliefs are those injunctions that we get from parents, or we have some kind of explanations of the events. Sometimes we do not have the enough ability to understand what really happened, especially when we are young. So it's really likely that we form some kind of wrong beliefs about what the world should be like, or what the world is, or about what we are like. So we oftentimes have those injunctions. But REBT helps us to realize, oh, that's problematic. We should cut off the connection between the event and the belief. We should change the belief about that event. Right, so you can also use this method, this approach, to find your own injunctions. So you can have some kind of a reflection, self-reflection. What kind of injunctions that you have? Are they rational? Are they accurate? You can think about it. So that's rational emotive behavior therapy. And the next one is a regular cognitive therapy. So the premise of a cognitive therapy is that sometimes the reasoning of everybody is not right, is problematic. So we do not have the correct reasoning. We do not have the correct way to think about something. So that's why we have wrong beliefs about something that cause problems. So we have misconceptions and faulty beliefs. So in cognitive therapy, it's called cognitive distortions. So our cognition is distorted, our knowledge, our beliefs are distorted. We do not have the accurate enough beliefs that truly reflect the reality. Sometimes our beliefs just it reflected distorted reality. So here's some different examples of cognitive distortions. So you can spend a few minutes to know about one cognitive distortion by yourself and expand to yourself or anyone you can find. You can read a textbook, you can find online, you can find the knowledge anywhere else. And really know about one type of cognitive distortion, know what it is, and expand that to yourself or other people. So right now, let me give a few examples. For example, dichotomous thinking. That's one of the cognitive distortions that everyone may have. Oftentimes, cognitive dichotomous thinking means that it's either all or none. It's either one thing or the other. But in reality, oftentimes it's about a degree. It's not about or none. So it seems like in dichotomous thinking style, there's only one and zero. It's either 0% or 100%. But in reality, oftentimes there's 50%, there's 70%, there's 30%, there's even like 200%. There's a spectrum. On this spectrum, there's different kinds of degrees. But in dichotomous thinking, it's either 0 or 100%. For example, if I take a test and get a D, how do I explain that? If I fall into the cognitive distortion of dichotomous thinking, I will say, oh, I failed the test because it does not meet my expectation. I expect to get the A, but I get D, so I failed. What if next time I get A, I will think, oh, I succeed. I'm successful in this time. But it's not about total failure or total success. It's about the degree. If I get D, I can see that I succeed to some degree because I still get D. I still like get the 70% right. I do not fail totally. So there's a lot of rooms for the explanation, but it's not the case that it's either this or that. So that's the example of dichotomous thinking. Another example that I can give is overgeneralization. Sometimes we apply a specific example to get the conclusions. We use one specific example to get a conclusion and use this conclusion to other places, to apply to other places. For example, if I get F for this test, I may get a conclusion that I'm dumb, I'm not smart, I'm a person who failed the tests. So that's the conclusion that I can get from this specific example. And I use this example, this conclusion to other cases. I will think that I will fail all the time. I will get AF for all other tests. So this example of overgeneralization. So from every time, for this time, I get the F. It's just a concrete event. It does not explain too much. But I overgeneralize it. I apply the result from that event to all other events, to all other possible events. That's overgeneralization. And another example is personalization. So what does that mean? It means that for some kind of external events, I myself is am responsible for that, for those external events. For example, Sally met me today, and Sally was rude to me. Sally was angry at me. So I will think that that's my responsibility. That's my fault to make her angry or make her rude to me. Is it reasonable? I don't think so. That's not a rational belief. Because I personalized this event. That event happened. That's the external event. I may not have the responsibility for that event. Probably that's not me who make her angry. She's just angry that day. I don't know what happened to her previously. She's just angry. I don't know. But if I personalize it, I will think that her angriness, her anger is because of me. That event is caused by myself. So that's personalization. Sometimes we are not responsible for some kind of events that we cannot control. We often have an illusion that we can control a lot of things, but it's the reality is we do not have control of a lot of events. For those events who happen, we do not have the responsibility. We are not. It's not necessary for us to personalize them. So there are other examples as well. So those, you can see that those examples are all about cognitive distortions, all about the wrong beliefs or irrational beliefs. So this behavior, like thinking styles. So these distortions are sometimes really powerful to control our minds. Sometimes we just automatically fall into this cognitive distortion thinking style. We just think that way. Oftentimes we have dichotomous thinking. Sometimes we overgeneralize. Sometimes we are really anxious about ourselves or about the other people because we draw the conclusion from just some really random events and apply this conclusion to other events. So that's drive us so anxious. Sometimes we think that we are responsible for many events, but we are not. So these are all the faulty beliefs or wrong beliefs that we can have because of all these cognitive distortions that we may have. We might not have the right way of thinking. We oftentimes have these wrong ways of thinking. So those wrong ways of thinking make us to have emotional or behavioral problems. So also those wrong ways of thinking make us have those injunctions. So far we talk about cognitive therapy. We talk about rational emotive behavior therapy. So these are two ways. At least it's not exhaustive. So there are at least two ways that help us overcome the negative influences from injunctions. And also, we are not only influenced by injunctions, but we also influenced by another phenomenon. It's called inner parent or inner critic. So what are they? Inner parent come from the phenomenon that sometimes we have the attitudes and beliefs about ourselves or other people. So those attitudes and beliefs are from parents because we internalize all those beliefs, emotional patterns, values from our parents. And when we grow up, we do not live with our parents anymore. our parents do not show up in our life anymore. However, it seems like in our mind, there's a parent, there's a mom and dad. In our mind, it often shows our parents' words or parents' attitudes or parents' emotions oftentimes shows up in our mind. It seems like there's a parent that is living in our mind that always supervises us. So we cannot get rid of the influence from our parents. Seems like because we internalize their own words, beliefs, and attitudes and emotions into our own self mind. So that it feels like there's a parent living in our mind that always telling us something, always supervises us, and oftentimes always criticize us. So the parent may constantly criticizes us and makes judgments about our worth. Well, whatever we do, whatever we say, this inner parent is always working on criticizing us and judging us and so forth. So that phenomenon is called inner critic. There are some negative consequences of an inner critic. Because of this, we cannot be really creative because we do not want to take risks. We do not want to make mistakes because this inner critic, this inner parent is always criticizing us if we do something out of control. Yeah, we do not want to be creative. We do not want to be. We do not want to take risks. We are afraid of being. We are afraid of failing. We are afraid of look foolish. We have no fun because having fun means doing something out of the track, doing something with risks or doing something that may fail. And also we are vulnerable to others' judgments because if others judge us, it seems like this inner parent is talking again. You know, the feeling is like this inner parent's words and other people's words are emerging. It seems like, oh, we are just like this. We are just foolish. We are just worthless. Something like that. I don't know if you have that feeling or not. If you have that feeling, you understand this quickly. If you do not have that feeling, you are lucky. You do not have the inner critic or inner parent living in your mind. Yeah. So it's like negative consequence, negative influence from the internalization process from our parents or other people who take care of us in the early years. So how to overcome injunctions or inner critic, inner parents? How to overcome this? The solution is being mindful. It's a state of mind. It's called mindful or mindfulness. So you may heard of this concept before, you may not, but it's okay. What is being mindful? What is mindfulness? It's first of all, it's a situation or it's a state of our minds. So when we are mindful, we are aware of stimuli from external environment or from internal environment in the present moment. So the key point is in the present moment, we are living in the present moment. We get all the information, we get all the stimuli from the environment or from ourselves without judging. So there's no judgment. We do not judge those stimuli or information. We just accept them as they are. We do not distort them. We do not ignore them. We just accept all the information in the present moment. For example, if I make mistakes, I just get that information from my experience and from the reality, from the environment. I do not judge this. I do not distort it. If I fail, I fail. That's it. I do not say, okay, so I do not fail. I still succeed. Because of this, and that's not real. Something like that. I do not either ignore it. Sometimes people fail, they ignore it. They pretend these events never happened. When they succeed, those success exist, but when they fail, those failure do not exist. That's ignored. So when we are mindful, we do not ignore any information. We do not distort any information. We just accept them as they are. We are living in the present moment. And also with mindfulness, we can accept ourselves. We can just accept that we are not perfect. We make mistakes. We may fail. We are sometimes not good enough. Sometimes are not moral enough. Sometimes we are just childish. Sometimes we do not want to be that good. Sometimes we're just tired. Just be ourselves. We are living in the real world. So with mindfulness, we can live in the real world, not in the inner parent. So actually inner parent or inner critic is something that is happening in our own brain or mind. Those things constantly create something, create some ideas, create some thoughts. So when those thoughts and ideas are controlling our mind, we are not mindful. We are just living in those imaginations, in those inner critic. When we are mindful, we focus on the real information from the present moment. We do not focus on the critics that result from those inner parents, because you know that our minds can create something that is unreal, something that is from nowhere. Our minds can create some illusional ideas, and our minds is doing that all the time. But also our mind can focus on the real information from the external environment, from our own body in the current moment. So if we try to not judge them, not ignore them, just accept them as they are, we can live in the present moment. We can resist the negative influences from the injunctions or inner parent. Yeah, so the outcomes of mindfulness can be that we can accept ourselves. We can forgive ourselves. Sometimes we cannot forgive ourselves because our inner parent is always talking something bad to us, always judging us, so that we cannot accept them ourselves. It seems that that's true, but with mindfulness, sometimes we can accept ourselves. We can forgive ourselves if we cannot meet the expectations of our inner parent. And we will talk about this mindfulness in detail in chapter 5. Yeah, we will talk about it again. Okay, so that's all the stuff about autonomy, inner parent, or injunctions, life scripts. And right now we can talk about adulthood. So we said that we'll go over the stuff about adulthood. But yeah, right now we can do that. So there are three stages of adulthood. There's early adulthood from 19 or 18 years old to 35 or 34 years old. There's a middle adulthood from 35 years old to about 65 or 60 years old. And the third stage of adulthood is late adulthood from 65 years old to the end of life. So in early adulthood, roughly from 21 or 18 years old to 34 years old. So according to Erikson's psychosocial view of human development, in this stage, the main task is to build intimacy, is to build intimate relationships with people, with your wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, with your children, with your parents, and with your colleagues, with your friends, and so forth. So the core struggle is intimacy versus isolation. So if you cannot successfully finish the task in this stage, you may feel isolated because you cannot build intimacy with other people. And also there are other specific tasks too in early adulthood. First one is, of course, forming the intimate relationships with the families or forming families. You're going to be an independent person and form a new family with your husband or wife. And you start to pursue the career in early adulthood. You will have a career, have some kind of achievement in the workplace. And another task, it can be finding the meaning in life or nurturing others, because in early adulthood, people start to have children. So one of the tasks to do is to educating or nurturing your children, and also making the independent decisions based on your own will or autonomy, because you are now an independent person already. You are already successfully assimilated into the society, and you can become an independent person right now. Yeah, you need to be financially independent. Yeah, so these are the core tasks or major tasks for this stage of life, early adulthood. So beyond age 35, that's middle adulthood, roughly from 35 years old to 69 years old, roughly. So in this stage, based on Erikson's psychosocial view of human development, the major task for this stage is generativity. It means that the main task is to raising the children and making the contributions to the whole society or to the family. So there are some specific tasks that people can do in this stage of life. They can review their own life and work. They start to work, but after many years, they can review how their life is, how their work is, and then they continue finding the meaning in life. So finding meaning in life is a really big thing for everybody. So you can see that in young adulthood they find meaning, in middle adulthood they find meaning, in later adulthood they also find meaning. People need meanings. They really want their life to be meaningful. So we'll talk about this in the last week of the lecture. But yeah, so right now we just briefly talk about it. And also in this stage, they want to be productive at work and also in life, because they really want to make something big. They want to really make their life meaningful, so they contribute to the society through the work, or they take care of the family very well. and they support children, nurture children and family. That's part of a life. So one part is work, the other part is family and children. And serve the community, that's also a part in life. And also they want to pass along their own values and experiences to the younger generation. Sometimes they just do not want to nurture the children. They do not want to contribute. They do not only want to contribute the society by their own efforts or work, but they also accumulate or summarize some kind of values or experiences that they have throughout so many years of life. They want to pass along this like values and or knowledge or experiences, life experiences to other people so that their own values and experiences can exist longer and can be more, there can be more tasks. But the major principle for this stage is that they want to make their own life more meaningful, more and more meaningful. They want to become what they want to become. So they want to actualize themselves. It's also a process of self-actualization. They want to contribute to the society, contribute to the community, contribute to their children, contribute to their family, and so forth. There can be some potential problems in middle adulthood if they cannot successfully finish these tasks. If they see that there are gaps between the dreams, what they want, and the reality, which might be that they cannot realize these dreams, they may feel painful because they are disappointed by themselves. They found that their life is not that meaningful. And they can meet the relationship crisis, they can get divorces, they can it's possible that they do not have good relationships with their children, or they fail to nurture the children very well, so that the children do not like him or her. And also loss of physical qualities. So because people get old, people's different all kinds of abilities are collapsing or fading during middle adulthood. And also their children may leave home when they are 40 or 50s or 60s. So they feel sad and lonely in this during this process. And there can be more potential problems. You know that adults' life are not easy. So that's middle adulthood. And there's late adulthood. Okay, the textbook divided the adulthood into 3 parts. So middle adulthood is from 35 to 69. Okay. So the late adulthood is from age 70 to the end of the life. Yeah, probably that's, yeah. I think it's 65, but authors of the textbook think that 70 is a boundary. So in this stage, they want to, the major theme of this stage is that they want to review their own life and make sense of their own life. So it's not about actually doing it to contribute to the society or family. It's more about reviewing. It's more about thinking and making sense, something like that. The core struggle for this stage is integrity versus despair. The task to do is to achieve the ego integrity. So ego integrity means that their ego, their self, is harmonious. There's no conflicts in their ego or in their self-concept. So to achieve ego integrity, when they achieve ego integrity, they almost do not have regrets. They believe that their own entire life is productive and meaningful, worthwhile life. So they want to have this. They want to have ego integrity. They want to believe that their life is meaningful and productive. And also, in this stage, they can find new meaning in life. They may get retired, their children left home, and they will have a new life without the formal work, or without the children living with them. They may find something else to do, and they find a new meaning in life. So, and also in a stage, respond to loss and change. So a lot of things are lost. A lot of things have changed. So they respond to these changes and really successfully. And also they need to accept the death of others, because in this stage, a lot of the friends, colleagues, and parents have passed away, and they need to respond to this and accept this fact. Yeah, so these are the typical tasks that the people who are in the late adulthood need to finish. So there can be some potential problems. They may feel hopeless. They may feel guilty. They may afraid of death. That's not really regular problems that they need to face. Okay, so that's about late adulthood. So right now we review the three stages of adulthood. There's early adulthood, there's middle adulthood, and there's late adulthood. So that's the end of the lecture for this week. So here are some key points that you need to know about for this week. First of all, autonomy. What is autonomy? What does it mean to people? Life scripts, injunction. And there are two ways to overcome injunctions: rational, emotive, behavioral therapy. There's cognitive therapy. And also there's inner parent. And mindfulness is a way to resist the inner parent. And also there are three stages of adulthood. Okay, so let's go talk about the assignment for this week. So in this week, we are going to write another journal, which is journal 3. That is journal assignment for chapter 3 about adulthood and autonomy and all that stuff. So in the lecture video, we have known about some injunctions or that do not allow us to do something. Those are the don't injunctions. People have those injunctions in mind, but there is also a list of do injunctions exist in our mind, that might exist in our mind. So those injunctions ask people to do something, force people to do something, instead of force them not to do something. But these two injunctions force us to do something. So these two injunctions may include be perfect, say only 9 things, don't say any bad things, say only 9 things. Be sure, be more than you are. Be obedient. Work up to your potential. Be practical at all times. Listen to authority figures. Always put your best foot forward. Put others before yourself. Be seen but not heard. So these are the doing junctions. You can see these are really rigid. So these are really harsh requirements with really high standard, like be perfect. No, I would say that nobody is perfect, but there's one doing junction saying that you must be perfect, and these are other doing junctions. You can find one or more injunctions from this list above that apply to you. You may also write down some injunctions that you have but are not listed here. So you can find one or more injunctions from this list, or you can find some other doing injunctions you have, but they are not written in this list. So find those injunctions. In the journal, you can write about one or two injunctions that apply to you by specifying what they are and giving an example of how they influence your life. So write about just one or two injunctions that apply to you and specify what they are and give examples of how they influence your life. And the second thing you need to do in the journal is that reflect your own childhood and find out where this or these injunctions come from. You can reflect what you have experienced in your childhood and find out the reasons why this injunction, where this injunction come from. They may come from your parents, grandparents, peers, and other people, and so forth, from the culture, from the society, and other stuff. In this journal, write specifically about how they conveyed the injunctions to you when you were a child. So talk about the ways they convey these notions, these injunctions to you. And the third, think of the strategies to overcome these injunctions. In the journal, write about these strategies. So first, you need to specify what the injunctions are and how they influence your life. The second, find out where they come from. Find out how you got those injunctions. And the third, think about the strategies to overcome these injunctions. You can combine the knowledge that you learn from the lecture and from the textbook and from this class and write about these strategies. So this journal is due at this Sunday. And talking about injunctions, that's 4 points. Talk about where the injunction come from, that's 4 points. And also the strategy to overcome injunctions is also 4 points. And that's all the stuff for chapter 3 and all the stuff for the entire week. And next week, we're going to talk about other stuff. Instead of reviewing of developmental psychology, we're going to talk about some really specific topics that help us to grow next week. And be sure to you finish the assigned readings for next week. And have a good week, and see you next week.